Hi everybody, with our Happy Mind stories, I share the inspirational stories of people who have suffered with mental illness or mental health issues and have successfully learned to live with this and go on to thrive, and are now helping others to do the same. In today's Happy Mind story, I have the pleasure of speaking with Julivia Christa Jean-Louis. Julivia will be sharing her story of experiencing trauma, living with depression, and being a survivor of not just a near-death experience, but also a suicide attempt. She now uses her voice to shift mindsets by sharing her personal story in her book, Honey Be Healed. So, Julivia, thank you so much for being available to share your Happy Mind story. So, how are you going today?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much for asking. I'm so happy to be here.
Awesome. Well, let's get started, and perhaps you can introduce yourself to the audience and then talk a little bit about your own personal story and the journey that's led you to where you are today.
Okay. So, hello, everyone. My name is Julivia Christa. I am a 27-year-old entrepreneur and digital creator, as well as a mental health advocate and a published author. I am here today as living proof, a survivor of a near-death experience and suicide attempt. Um, I guess where I can start off at would be, my tragic experience, which was a surgery that I had to get due to a medical issue I was experiencing. I had to go through a surgical procedure. There was no other way to attend to this issue. And in the midst of, me getting this operation done, things went completely left. And being as though surgery is not something that uh, is destined to come out perfect, I think that, I was walking into a situation thinking I would walk right out, but it wasn't that way. And so I had to face tragedy head on, and it was very, very hard for me. It was very, very traumatizing, I want to say. And I didn't just survive. I think it was like I had a rebirth. I think that, what I went through was a spiritual experience. It was nothing that I myself could understand or comprehend at the time. But, with the help of God and the help of my peers and my community and my family and friends, I was able to overcome this hardship and, share my testimony with others. So on January 16th of the year 2017, I was scheduled to have a hernia repair. And this is a general surgery that gets done over thousands and thousands of times a year. I want to say that, I've had the surgery back in 2014, so it wasn't pretty new to me. It was just something that I wasn't expecting. And I'm not really fearful of things. I'm a very optimistic person. So I feel like this situation caught me way off guard. But I want to say that, I got the operation done around 10 a.m. in the morning. And when I woke up from my operation, I had this sensation in my body feeling like I was going to explode. And at the time when my mom was asking me to go further into detail, there was no other words that I could use to describe the feeling that I was getting inside. Internally, I felt like, obviously I couldn't sustain myself. I don't think that I felt ill. It was more so of a feeling that I can't explain. But in terms of my body, I felt like I was going to burst into a million pieces. And so I woke up and I explained to my mom that, I'm feeling uneasy. I don't know like what's wrong. And she's trying to reassure me, but it didn't really work. But it wasn't then I was fearful. I think what the at the time where I got fearful was when I was explaining what I was feeling to the doctors and they didn't have, much concern for me. So, when you're in the hands of medical professionals, you're looking for a certain reassurance. And it's not to say that they weren't doing their job. It was just at that time, I didn't feel like I had enough reassurance to where as though I felt okay. And so, um, moving forward, I was authorized to basically eat something, intake something so that I can, go home. This is a same day surgery. So with same day surgeries, there's a procedure, there's protocol. and you have to go through certain things in order for you to be discharged. And so as I began to intake Jello, I can feel it go. I immediately felt it go down my throat. I swallowed it and I immediately vomited. And, you know, I was scared because uh, that didn't happen before from my previous experience. And that immediately let me know that something was wrong. Um, Soon after I vomited, you know, the medical professionals realized that they didn't insert a catheter into me, which is a Foley. It's a medical tool that we use during surgical procedures so that if you get abdominal surgery, we use that so that you can go, you know, you can go to the bathroom. And because I didn't have it in me, I was feeling all of that pressure within my body. I wasn't able to release my urine. And so the nurse quickly tries to find the catheter and insert it into my body. And as she's doing that, I start to feel a little bit of pressure relief, but then that sensation of feeling like my body was going to explode got more intense and more intense. So soon after, my body ended up, you know, just losing conscious. I want to say that I immediately fell asleep after a few minutes. And, you know, keep in mind during the story, I was completely out of it. I just woke up from surgery and things were already going left. So I'm conscious and I'm unconscious. I'm conscious and I'm unconscious. I wake up in a secondary level where I'm being monitored by two other medical professionals. And, you know, I am not in a stable condition at this moment. My parents are being contacted and, you know, being aware so that they can be aware of the situation. And of course, at this point in my story, I'm definitely, you know, scared of what's going to happen next. And I think I started to, you know, think about death. I started to, you know, imagine what it would feel like to die. And, you know, if this was going to be the day that I die, I tried to somewhat prepare myself for it. Um, and I think that's just like the fact that, you know, I was super optimistic walking into the situation. So I just tried to push myself through to try to you know, keep me afloat. But soon after that, my body went into hypovolemic shock and my blood pressure and heart rate dropped you know, incredibly. And it was very, very, very scary for me. I started to see all the doctors and nurses run into my room. And, you know, I was, you know, at this time, I think that I started to call out to God. I started to, you know, say to God in my subconscious mind, you know, I need help. I'm not sure what's going wrong. I don't know what's happening, but I just need you to help me. And I got an emergency blood transfusion. And it was super scary because I had to watch them do everything. I couldn't verbally say anything. And I think that my body was slowly shutting down. And so, being as though I couldn't talk, I started to really think, you know, this really might be the day that I die. And, you know, I get the blood transfusion and, you know, it definitely was successful at that time. But then I woke up in the ICU. And when I woke up in the ICU, I was honestly completely out of it. I wasn't able to talk. I was in and out of sleep. And my surgeon had, you know, let my mother know that it would be best to keep me overnight just so they can monitor me and make sure that everything is okay. And within 10 minutes, the surgeon comes back to my room and wakes me up and lets me know that I'm going to be returning to the operating room because from the moment that I woke up, um, I've been bleeding internally. And none of my tests, CAT scans, MRIs, x-rays, and none of it was conclusive. Everything was coming up inconclusive. And so um, I want to honestly say that, you know, that was definitely a breakdown moment for me. I started to cry uncontrollably, and I honestly gave up. I felt hopeless. I felt as though, God left me for dead. I felt I was so angry and just frustrated that, I've been suffering this whole entire time. And I started to internalize these emotions, and it made my situation worse. The pain definitely got more intense. And my mom had to sign, papers because there was a chance that I may not make it out of the second operation. And so I'm, being transferred to the operating room from the ICU room, and they take me to a hallway so that I can see all of my family and all of my friends. And, I'm looking at everybody. And I guess this is this moment where, people talk about that being on their deathbed, and what are the last thoughts that you have, what's going through your mind, and I can honestly say that I wasn't thinking about any problems I had. I wasn't thinking about any issues or any turmoil that may have struck within my life. I think that I just was thinking about, have I lived my purpose? Have I done things to where as though people will remember me, and is it a good thing? Is it a good memory? That's all I was really thinking about. Of course, in distress, complete distress. And I returned from the operating room, and it was successful. I did wake up with a 12-inch scar that I had to get. Originally I had an incision. I already knew I was going to get an incision, but the scar had to, be uh, maximized because they had to reopen the original scar. So it's not as, I want to say, it wouldn't be perfect anyway, but it's not as neat as it could have been because I was bleeding internally. And so they were just trying to save my life, which I deeply appreciate. And, regardless of what scars I would have had, in the outcome, I just was happy that they were able to save my life. Because waking up the first moment, like I really realized, like, wow, I actually survived. I was overjoyed. It was like this feeling of of joy, and there's no other way to explain it because that was the first time I really was grateful for something, like truly, truly grateful. I say I'm grateful for this, I'm grateful for that, but I was grateful to be alive. Like in that moment, I was just so happy that God gave me another chance because I knew that I haven't done, all that I could do within this lifetime. And I knew that, there was so much more greatness within me that, although I struggle with, I just knew that I wasn't ready to die. And so I was hospitalized for a week in the ICU for 3 days, and then I was hospitalized for a week. And, I got discharged on January 20th of 2017 and was on bed rest for about 4 to 6 weeks. Um, and, I tried to get back to my normal life pretty quickly. I think that I was trying to rush my healing process, and that's what kind of drove me into depression and, severe suicidal ideations. Because in my mind, I thought, I have to get back to my life. I have to get back to me. I have to, do this. I have to do that without me even knowing, that day of my near death experience, God literally, he literally, um, you know, I think that he deaded the old Julivia. It was like, okay, who you were from this day before is no longer to be. I want to make you new. I want to give you purpose. I want to give you direction. I want to guide you. I want to, give you something so that a mission, I want to say. I felt like, at the time I couldn't understand it, but leading up to my life now, it's like God really had plans for me. And so, through my experiences with depression and post trauma, which lasted about 1 to 2 years, um, I wasn't really able to be vocal about it because I come from a very cultural background. I am Haitian and Dominican, and even from growing up, we were always taught not to tell our business, not to express how we feel because not everybody will be receptive to it. And I guess out of fear, I kept it all to myself. I suffered. I truly, truly struggled with my own thoughts. And these were not positive thoughts. These were negative thoughts. These were very evil thoughts. And, I don't want to say that it was all my doing. I think that I was truly, truly under spiritual warfare. And I say this because I would have certain dreams and certain visions, and I'm being attacked like in my sleep. There will be times where I'm in my sleep and I'm crying hysterically, and I have like my family trying to like pray over me and wake me up. It was just like this horrible, horrible experience of just being tormented. And I want to say like the traumatizing moments from almost dying kind of like stemmed throughout, my healing process. And, when I was on bed rest, it wasn't much that I can do except for go through the process. So I definitely struggled. I started to confine in alcohol. I started to confine in drugs. Um, and I just felt as though each and every day I didn't want to feel. I didn't want to feel my emotions. I didn't want to think for myself. I didn't want to make my own decisions. I wanted to just wake up and sleep all day, every day. And so this obviously led to destruction. This type of behavior that I was practicing day in and day out led up to my suicide attempt. And, I want to say even a couple weeks before my suicide attempt, which was on October 30th, 9 months later from January 16th, the day of my near death experience, I want to say a couple weeks before, I started to feel, less optimistic. I started to feel like, well, what is the point of healing? What is the point of overcoming this if I'm still going to remember this, each and every day, if I'm still going to have to relive this moment each and every day? And, I started to just become hopeless. I think even my peers started to notice a difference within, my behavior. And, I was very good at concealing it. I want to say that I tried to hide it because I didn't want people to think I was crazy. I didn't want people to judge me. I didn't want people to look at me like I was an outcast, um, which was a mistake because that's what God intended. He wanted me to go through something that not just myself, but others have experienced. And so, me thinking that I was the only person in the world going through this is what made it worse. I think we do that a lot as humans, and that was like a major part of my story. I really thought that I was battling this all alone. And so the day of my suicide attempt, that was the day where I truly felt like there was no point in living. There was no point in me trying to even express, uh, you know, what life meant at that time. I felt like all the plans that I had set for myself and all the goals that I had set out for myself, I felt that they were, I felt that I was incapable of, accomplishing them. I felt that I wasn't strong enough. And, all of this just trickled down into me feeling unworthy and undeserving of living. Um, and so I just started to imagine and really get these thoughts of killing myself. Uh, and as I started to have these thoughts, of course, at the time, I'm questioning myself because I'm like, well, why would I be thinking about killing myself? Like, I've never in my life been through a situation where death had to be the ending result, and so it was very scary, but I was also emotionless. And so it was a very hard thing for me to try to understand at the time, and so I allowed my evil thoughts, and I allow the idea of not overcoming this to come to fruition. And I did try to commit suicide at my job. At the time I was working in a daycare facility, and I tried to strangle myself to death in the bathroom. And at the time when I was doing it, I obviously was far gone, as far as like mindset wise, but physically I was tired. Physically I felt like I just I just felt completely incapable. There's a difference when you feel uh you know when you feel weak and then when you feel defeated. I felt defeated. I felt as though my near death experience and these thoughts that I were having, and these traumatizing dreams and stuff like that, I felt like, it defeated me. I felt like I couldn't fight back. And so that was the end all be all for me. And I made my mind up. So, I started and I didn't stop until I became unconscious. And my coworker, um, I really thank God for her because, she was supposed to be doing her job. And every time I think about this point in my story, I always have to thank God because if she was doing her job, which she would have, been not wrong for doing, she was supposed to be monitoring children, but instead she came to look for me because I hadn't been back in a certain amount of time, and she found me unconscious in the bathroom. And she says that when she saw me, I was laying there and my hair was covering my face, so she couldn't see the rope around my neck. And when she flipped me over, she tried to use her own hands to try to put it in between the rope. And as she starts to tug on it, she realizes that she's making it tighter. And so she leaves me there. She runs and goes to get scissors, and she comes back and she's talking to me. It's like I guess when she was tugging on the rope, it kind of like shook me because when she came back, I could hear her voice and I hear her saying, "Julivia, why would you do this? Why would you do this, Julivia? Why would you do this?" And she cuts the rope off of my neck. And, I just start to cry. I cried and cried because I can't believe that the suicide attempt wasn't successful. I woke up just feeling, I was in agony. I just was so, so angry because I couldn't even do that right. And, I just immediately start to think of, what is my family going to think? What are my friends going to think? Like, it's no way I can hide this, and from that day forward, it's like I knew it was only one other way to go. Like if I didn't survive, if I didn't, you know, if the suicide attempt didn't fall all the way through, I think that, in some way, shape, or form, it told me that in the back of my mind, because I couldn't process this at the moment, but in the back of my mind, I'm just like, how could this be? Like there has to be something above me, a higher power, something that is controlling the situation because I wanted to die. I truly, truly did not want to live anymore. And so it's just like, well, why isn't it working? Like, like who's saving me? Like I don't understand like why isn't things that I'm trying to do taking place? And so I was immediately transferred to um, a psychiatric medical hospital, and it's called Nazareth here. I'm not sure if they're in any other state or country, but I was evaluated at this hospital, and I was just completely, I want to say like I had no words to say to anyone. So I definitely wasn't responding to any questions that were being asked. I was completely silent, from the moment I woke up to the moment I got to the hospital. I didn't have anything to say. Um, I was just like honestly in disbelief that the suicide attempt didn't, take place. Um, and at this moment where I'm in this hospital being evaluated, I still want to die. I still feel like, I'm having these suicidal thoughts. Like I'm just so fed up with life at this point that it's just like nobody can convince me otherwise. There's nothing that anybody can say to me or, express to me that would change my mind. I was just so far gone at this point. And so I was admitted into a psychiatric mental hospital called Friends. And, at the time when I was being transported there, I felt like, I started to think about, well, what's next? If I didn't die then, and, I'm still not mentally in the right space from all the way from January 16th, I started to think to myself as I'm being transferred to the hospital, the psychiatric hospital, I started to think to myself, well, what's next? Like, where do we go from here? And it was little to nothing after that. I said that to myself, and that was it. back to blank thoughts, back to, you know, not responding or not, you know, being verbal or anything like that. Um, and, you know, when I got to the hospital, they told me that I definitely will be staying here uh, because the place that I got evaluated at prior diagnosed me as confused and suicidal. And so I meet with a therapist and a psychiatric uh, physician, and you know, I begin to just express to them my story, what happened to me. You know, I was suffering from thoughts that were evil and that were, you know, tormenting me. And you know, I was losing sleep. I was not eating. I was, you know, abusing drugs and alcohol. I was so transparent and honest with them because at this point I felt like if I don't say I need help now, then this situation just might eat me up alive. And so I cried out for help. I, you know, and at the time, you know, I really struggled with that. Even growing up, I never wanted people to think that I was weak. I didn't want people to feel sorry for me. So I guess that you can say that, you know, this is a deep rooted issue, you know, the fact that I couldn't reach out for help, the fact that I couldn't express that I was suicidal. And, you know, it didn't have to lead up to that point, is what really, you know, upsetted me. But they were able to, you know, I guess they were very understanding. I don't know if it was God who put it on their heart, but they were able to just see me as a human being, not somebody who was suicidal, not somebody who was confused or traumatized. They saw me as a person, as a young woman who was struggling, who needs help. And so, you know, they told me that they would help me. Um, they, which is absolutely incredible and just is just amazes me still to this day how they overrided, you know, their decision and they decided to let me go home. And they said that they would help me, you know, they would reach out to me, they would help me get a therapist, they will help me, you know, get admitted into therapy and, you know, basically whatever it is that I needed, they would be there for me. And so, you know, I go home that night and, you know, everything is just like, I feel like as bad as I wanted to, you know, think about the fact that I could forget that this ever happened. I knew that that would never happen. I knew that this had to be somewhat a part of my story. I just didn't know how it would be. And so, you know, I think God had a funny way of showing me that he has a plan for me. I felt like first he had to break me down. He had to, you know, he had to he had to break ties to who I was so that he can help me, you know, become who I'm destined to be. And, you know, although it was tragedy, it was a very tragic situation. After, you know, one another, I feel like in order for him to get my attention, that is exactly what I needed. It gave me direction, you know. And, you know, I don't think that I've ever been through anything as traumatic. And so to have gone through, you know, experiencing a near death experience and to survive that, to leading up to trying to take my own life. And then, you know, after that, just feeling like lost in a sense. Like, I don't know what's next for me. I think that that was just like the beginning of my story. That was the beginning and the I want to say the caterpillar process. Like God was literally like, okay, I'm going to take you from this to that. And you know, he didn't skip any steps, which, you know, if you're going to be able to um stand, you know, very firm within a position that God gives you, I feel like he has to build your character. And so that's what depression and, you know, post trauma did. Although it, you know, I was severely impacted by it, I felt like it built me to who I am today. The type of mindset that I have now, there's not a thing that I can experience or, you know, go through to where as though I don't think it's happening for me and, you know, happening to me. I used to think that, you know, when we go through things in life, that it's happening to you. Now I know that when things happen, it's happening for me. This is just, you know, another thing that I need to you know, go through in order for me to get to where I need to be. And so I didn't start writing Honey Be Healed into the following year. And I honestly didn't know I was writing a book. I was writing because I couldn't verbally express what I wanted to say. And I was never really good at it. And so writing was always my thing. Writing was always a gift of mine. And it's just so amazing how I had to go through something traumatic to get back into that space. And writing is truly my superpower. I feel like people can resonate within my writing and they can, it's like they can feel me spiritually, like from, miles and miles away. They're able to, allow it to resonate with them and they're able to take it in and apply it to their life. And I think that is truly, truly amazing. And, I think that, I want to say that from the suicide attempt up until when I wrote the book, uh, I just had these questions of, uncertainty. I'm like, I still didn't know that I would be an author. I still didn't know, what life would be for me. I just kind of just walked the path. Like each and every day, I just was like, okay, one foot in front of another, one foot in front of another. I wasn't really thinking about where I was going to be 2 to 3 months from now. I just was like, let's just take this one day at a time. And, it helped. It helped tremendously. I want to say that, about 60 days after my suicide attempt, I got baptized. And, I was running from my baptism for a very long time because I do take God very seriously. And I just wasn't ready to be in that space yet. But it was indeed time. And I'm so glad that I did it when I did, because it was that same night I had an encounter with Jesus Christ. And he literally he showed me a glimpse of my suicide attempt. And he told me that my life wasn't mine to take. And from that day forward, it was like, I was just anew. It was just like this this positive light ran over me. And it wasn't that I was just okay or that I was happy. It was just a sense of relief, like, oh my God, like God knows me. Like he knows my situation. He knows that I'm struggling. He knows that, I'm going through it. And that was all I needed. Because I truly feel like, again, the whole time I was internalizing these emotions, it was eating me up alive. So to just know that it was God who, you know, saved me, not just once, but twice, it was just like everything I needed to know. It was the biggest confirmation that one could have wanted to receive. And so, um, of course, waking up that next day, I couldn't believe I had an encounter with God. And so I started to write about it. And I did share it within my novel because I felt like that was one of the biggest parts of my story that I feel like, was super important because I was looking for a breakthrough. You know, I was looking for peace. I was looking for understanding. And I found all of that within God. And it's just truly amazing how that was just like the I feel like, my tragic situation in 2017 was like the groundwork. But then the following year was like, okay, I'm writing about this. Like I'm actually able to explain what happened to me, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. I left nothing out. All the spiritual warfare that I was battling, everything, I put it all in my novel. And when I published the book in 2021, I wasn't expecting it to be a best-selling novel. I wasn't expecting to sell, millions of books. I was hoping that it would save someone because I needed to be saved. I needed someone to help me. I needed somebody to, you know, to talk to. I needed somebody to relate to. And so to put this book out there, for someone who is struggling with depression, post-trauma, or suicidal thoughts, who is having a hard time finding direction in their life, meant everything to me. And so I want to say that depression almost had me. Suicidal ideations almost took me, but God had bigger plans for me. And I want everybody to know that although we have these things that we struggle with, not just the tragic situations we go through, but some of the things that we struggle with within our own self, some of the things that, we feel like we're incapable of, or that we feel like we're just undeserving of, we are truly deserving of within this life. We just have to be in a place to receive it. And sometimes it takes us to have to get rid of the mindset that we have now. And it's not an overnight process, but it's possible. And so for those who are in a space who are depressed, or let's say you are in a space where you're suicidal, it won't last forever. That's number one. Because I thought it would last forever. And now I'm here to tell you that it won't last forever. Um, your breakthrough is near. You just have to, you have to keep faith. You have to, you have to try your best to just take one day at a time and not force yourself back into, any situation. I feel like life is not about force. Yes, we have to work hard and we have to be determined and we have to, have somewhat of a vision, but nothing in life should be forced. And so, um, if you're looking for a purpose, you're looking for direction, God is there, Jesus is there to give that to you. And in order for you to, know who you are, I feel like you do need to know Jesus, because I don't think that I knew who I was until I encountered Jesus. And it's like, even after my first encounter, I had several encounters with God where he just was confirming, this is what he had for me. This is what he wants me to do. And I just know that if he did it for me, he can do it for anybody, because I didn't want a relationship with God. I didn't want, to live. And still yet he found me worthy of being an inspiration, not to just people that I'm surrounded by, but to the world. I am an inspiration throughout, throughout several states and several countries. Sometimes it amazes me how people reach out to me from places I've never been. I've never met these people face to face. They've never met me, but they hear my story and they're just like, thanking me for it, and they're inspired by it. And I have to give the glory to God, because I didn't want to be an author. I didn't want to, share my story. That was not in my plannings, but I'm so glad that I did. I'm so glad that I just trusted the process, because that's another thing, like sometimes we don't understand why we're put in certain situations, and it's like on the other side of fear, on the other side of, hardships, there's so many great things that, us as humans are that we should have, and that we could have abundance of. Like, it doesn't just have to be a little bit or to an extent. We could truly have all it is that we desire. We just have to be in a place to receive it. And so, and I don't think that even now at this point in my life, I've never received anything until I was in a place to receive it. God never blessed me earlier, or, he never gave me anything so that I could just fumble it and, destroy it. He gave it to me when I was in a place to nurture it, take care of it, and allow it to grow. And so, I am proud to say that, although I am a mental health advocate, I do a lot of community service, a lot of community work. My overall goal is to be a philanthropist. I do want to just build up my community from the ground up, starting with the youth. And I want to develop a curriculum and somewhat of a nonprofit organization, to where as though we're going to create a curriculum to help young individuals and also older who go through traumatic experiences, and help them with mindset building and self-development. Because I think that, even with us surviving, I think that uh, mindset is everything. If you have a better mindset, um, despite what your situation is, despite what you've been through, I think that you would be in a place to just overcome it. And so if we could just build healthier mindsets, if we can just instill healthier behaviors that, stem from a healthy mindset, I think that we can build better people, better individuals. And, I'm 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 really looking forward to seeing that chain reaction. I'm looking forward to, seeing people go from struggling to overcoming, because I know that it's possible. And it's easier said than done. This will not just be done with just words. We will be hands on with these individuals, and I will find a way to where as though we can create somewhat of a family structure, because I also think that that's important. You know, having other people surrounded by you who are going through the same things, who are going through the same struggles, kind of help you not internalize it so much. And so that's something that I'm really looking forward to doing, as well as writing other self-help books. I do work with a nonprofit organization called What I Wish I Knew Foundation. And what we do is we help the youth with resources such as with entrepreneurship, business, financial literacy, and things that stem from that area. And we're actually having a big back to school festival on August 20th of 2023. We're going to be expecting over 1,500 guests, where we're going to be giving back school supplies. We're going to be, giving out resources, and we're going to have motivational speakers and, a lot of people coming out to advocate to these children, and so that we can minimize a lot of the violence and a lot of the things that are going on within the community. We're just trying to be involved, being hands-on. And so I'm grateful to be a part of that organization, as well as just helping people individually, because I think that God has a funny way of placing people in my life that need me. And it's like, at first I didn't realize it. I'm like I went through that, like they would tell me their story, and I'm like, wait, I went through that too. And it's just like, it's like soon after I started to realize, okay, God, you want me to tell my story. Okay. And so, I help people on a day-to-day basis, not just on social media. Like, I truly am who I am on the internet in real life. And anybody who knows that I truly want the best, life for each and every individual, because I think we're deserving of it. Like, I just know that I know who God is, and I know what he expects of us, and I know how he sees us. And all I want to do is just, I want people to see themselves the way God sees them. Because, just to kind of like give you a general aspect of that, I never thought that I myself would be not just who I am today, but I don't think that it's like hard for me to believe that, I am as blessed as I am. Like, certain opportunities that have come my way, I'm just like, this is for me. Like, and I just start to think about all the things that I've been through and all the things that I kind of did to sabotage that. And I'm just like, wow, you're still giving me everything that my heart desires. So it's just like, I know that, all of us have certain things in common. And one of the things that I know we have is, excuse me, the lack of. We all just have in some case, some shape or form, the lack of, whether that's lack of discipline, lack of self-control. But if we can work on those things, we can work on those behaviors and habits, we can build you up. And, with that, I think that there's a possibility that you can, like become who you are destined to be. You're just one thought away from doing so. And so um, I'm really, really grateful for this opportunity, because when I tell you that I'm so amazed at what God has done for me, especially mentally. The fact that I couldn't even express what I was going through, to now being able to tell my story day in and day out, is just like truly nothing but the Lord's work and the Lord's doing. And all the glory truly goes to him. I'm still healing. I'm still in my healing season. I don't think that, especially when you go through certain things, is not to say that there's an end time for your healing season. And I never want anybody to think that I've just figured it out, which is, the subliminal message of the title of my book, which is Honey Be Healed. Healed meaning past tense. But when you read the book, you'll find out that, it's the journey, it's the process that, you have to embrace. And if you can just do that, when you come across certain things in life, such as hardships and trials, you'll forever trickle back to this mindset. You'll forever, revert back to this mindset, and you'll be able to, get through it. And I know that's true, because I've honestly hit rock bottom, and there was no other way for me to go. So I know if God did it for me, he could do it for others, most definitely.
Very good. Well, thank you so much for being so vulnerable and willing to share your entire story. Very powerful stuff. So there's a lot to kind of like unpack, and we've kind of got a little bit of time. So let me think here how we can do this. So what do you think has been, like, obviously God has played a big part in you, but do you think it was just there were some people willing to be available to you? Well, I guess number one, it was your willingness to share your story. So you, as you said, like throughout your life, you've kind of like always wanted to kind of like hold it in, being a little bit concerned about sharing with other people. And then your first kind of like step in the right direction was being vulnerable and willing to share with the people at that second psychiatric hospital you went to. Would you say that would be the one kind of like tipping point for you, the willingness to kind of like share at that particular point of time?
Most definitely. And the reason why I say that is because you know, I was struggling for help. I mean, struggling. Like if even if someone asked if I needed help, I would say no, and I knew I needed it. And so it was a big moment for me because I felt like it's okay to not be okay. It is okay to not be okay. And if a person could just realize that, they would not feel so bad about reaching out for help. You know what I mean? You know, I just think that, I was too sunken in my thoughts to just think that, I couldn't get help or that I couldn't even ask for help. So to know that it's okay to not be okay is just like a major was like a major deal for me. That was like the first time I was like, okay, it's actually okay to ask for help. It's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay to let somebody know that, you're not in a good place. And it was the best thing that I could have ever did because they changed their mind. It's like if I didn't do that, I would have, been stuck there and Lord knows for how long. And it's just like again, it was nothing but God's plan because I was mute from the moment I woke up from my suicide attempt. I was mute. So it was honestly just God's plan.
Very good. And you would say that having all these experiences and not having an outlet, not knowing how to kind of like express yourself, and you internalizing everything, it just kind of like escalated everything. And then that's what leads to this post-traumatic stress, I guess, is like when we don't release those negative emotions, we don't release what we're feeling, we just kind of like bottle it in, and we're not actually like processing it, and then we're not capable of processing it. It just becomes overwhelming, and then that's when we get to, you know, points where we feel there is no hope anymore. So it's important to, if you're going through this experience, if you had any negative experience, or even if you're a family person looking at someone who's had that experience, to kind of like guide them to kind of like get help to experience everything they're kind of like feeling, and then try to go through the whole process. Would you say that would be a good starting point for the healing journey?
Absolutely, absolutely. Because we have to understand that, you know, some of the things that we go through that are very, very that are deemed tragedy just are I feel like take place so that we can, be built so that we can be how can I say? We can be reinvented. And sometimes that's the only way to get our attention. um we are very, very uniquely made, and I'm learning that each and every day as I encounter different people who have been through different things. But anytime I hear somebody's story and it's either as traumatizing as mine or even worse, I'm just like, wow, I'm even more excited for what's in store for you because it is when that happens, it's like what's to come after could only be better. That's just the way life is. It could only be better. So I think that if we was to focus on not just why things is happening to us, but what is it trying to tell us? What is it trying to teach us? Like really, really I want to say digging deep into, why things take place in our lives and not just questioning it like, why me, but like what is this trying to teach me? Like shifting your mindset, is a huge thing. And if we could just do that, I think that, the healing process will be much better off. Definitely.
Very good. So how do we shift this mindset? Because obviously, there's a lot of self-help people going, just shift your mindset. But
Yes,
but
yes,
like, okay, so but when you are in that space, you
yes,
know, so what are the tools, or how do you kind of like learn to, because like we all tend to kind of like focus inwardly, and then the world is happening to us, not
yeah.
for us, as you're saying, and then that's our natural default. So how do we escape that? How do we get out of that process? Because it's obviously a downward spiral, isn't it, if we kind of like believe this? Because then we don't have any control, we don't have any kind of like I don't know how to say it, but like we don't own what's happening to us. If we're not owning what we're happening and everything's happening to us, well, then of course you're going to get down to a negative kind of like space, because, basically, oh, the world's beating me up and I can't do anything. So, it's kind of like hopeless. So how do we shift to get to where we believe that there is a measure of control, and that it's not happening just to us, it's happening to other people, it's part of life. So how do we shift?
I think that that is a very, very good question, and I'm so glad that you asked it because what you said right after that is so true. A lot of people do say, just shift your mindset, but we never talk about how. And so I just want to read this short excerpt that's on the back of my book because I wanted people to know that, this is like I gave a little bit of direction. Like, yes, this is my story, this is what the book is about, but I also wrote this to just like conclude the paragraph. And what I said was, remember to be open. Remember to be brave and be hopeful wherever you are on your own path. And I will reassure you that nothing in this life is impossible, especially a healthier version of you. No matter how low you may surface, you will rise and you will prevail. I am living proof that God can and God will. No matter the season, honey, be healed. And I want to say that, we cannot control what happens to us. We cannot control it, but we can choose how we decide to respond. And so the shift of the mindset just starts from, it really starts from you being open to a new way of thinking. And it sounds super, super like I want to say like huge to do, but it's something just as little as you not responding how you normally would to a situation. And like normally I feel like when we go through things, our subconscious kind of has already a built-in system of how we should react to this. So for instance, if I'm used to getting my heart break and I decide to cry after every heartbreak, my subconscious is going to go cry, right? But if I go through a heartbreak and I tell myself, well, this relationship probably had to end so that I could be in a relationship that is truly for me. That is a shift of mindset. That is going from, and it's not to say that I won't cry because I probably will. But at the same time, it's me choosing to respond differently. I'm choosing to look at the situation and see what it's trying to teach me. And so, I think that it's so much easier said than done. However, I feel like it's within us. Like, and the worst thing that we can do as individuals is think that we don't have it within us to have this shift of mindset. Like we literally just have to be open. However you're used to responding, try to respond differently and practice this, not throughout times where you're going through hardship, but on a day-to-day basis with your family, with your friends. How are you responding? It's truly important to understand that you are in control somewhat. You may not be able. I think that is actually a life mantra. 90% of the things that happen to us are out of our control. 10% is what we do about it. And so if we could just honestly remember that we have it within us to make decisions, to make healthy and better decisions for ourselves. I feel like a shift in mindset can only result from that, honestly.
Very good. So yeah, so basically you're saying that even it's probably better to develop the skill set outside of having to develop the skill set. So basically, in day-to-day life, being more aware of what's going on, being curious about things that are happening to you, and then learning how you can better respond to those situations, big or
Yeah,
small, so that
yeah,
when something adverse does happen to you, you already have that self-belief that you can deal with a situation. So, you know, I think it's kind of powerful what you're saying. Every day you should kind of like practice being able to respond to life as opposed to reacting to life.
yes, absolutely. That is exactly what I mean, because I mean, life is going to continue to happen, is it not? And so, are we going to just allow things to break us down and allow us to, lead us to destruction? I don't think that that's where we're destined to be. I think that we were made, very uniquely and wonderfully made by God. So it's like, why would we do a disservice to ourselves and allow things to just break us down? Like, and I'm not saying that you won't ever be in that place, because sometimes it happens. I've been there, but I've also been able to, take my pain and turn it into my power. And that's another thing that I think we can do. I think when you start to be involved, you start to serve others, you'll begin to realize that you're not the only person that's struggling. But you have to serve. Like, you have to be, willing to be out there and willing to be, I think that is very humane of us to serve one another. And something simple as you just either reaching out or providing a resource or being a listening ear. These are all things that we could provide that cost no amount of money, and just take what, a little bit of your time. It's like it's practicing selflessness. And so these are all characteristics that I feel like I I soon developed. I didn't just go from, you know, this to that, but what I'm saying is it's possible. There's it's a step-by-step process, but definitely have to do the inner work. And then after you figure out what it is that, you're consciously like reacting to one after another, you can take control somewhat. You may not be able to control the situation overall, but how you respond is everything.
Very good. So, if there was one piece of advice you could give to anyone who's gone through something traumatic in their lives, they may be at a very low point at this particular point in time, what
Mhm.
advice would you give to them?
I want to say that, there will come a time in life where you'll realize that healing is a choice. Um, that living is actually, a blessing within itself, and that we truly only get one life. And, there's a scripture in the Bible that I want to share. It's in Romans, the book of Romans, chapter 12, verse 2, and it says, "Be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind." And what that means is, you know, you could literally manifest the life you want. You could literally evolve into the person you want to be, but it starts within the mind. Everything starts within the mind. And so hardships don't last forever, and you don't have to be sunken in your thoughts. It's okay to not be okay. You can reach out for help. There is somebody who is willing to help. And even if the first couple of people turn you down or don't seem to be as helpful, don't give up, because that's easy to do. I feel like you know what's going to happen when you give up. How about you just try to see what happens when you don't give up, when you continue to strive, when you continue to fight? Like, I feel like, why not want to uh experience that? I feel like that is something that, is rewarding within itself, the fact that you're not giving up on yourself. And I'm a very firm believer in the law of attraction. I think that whatever it is that you give out, you truly get back. So it's like understanding that, although you're in a space of turmoil, you don't have to operate in that, is what I'm saying. You don't have to operate in a space of turmoil. Um, And, it will be hard. I'm not one of those people who's going to tell you it's easy to do. It will be very, very hard, but you will get stronger and you will get wiser. And as you go along your journey, you go along your process, God is with you. Even though you may not feel like it, even though it may not appear to be so, God is with you always. And, I feel like enjoy where you are right now, embrace where you are now because you'll never be here again. And whatever you can learn and take from this season in your life, try your best to not forget it because all life is going to continue to do is just present you with opportunities and situations to where as though you can, act out these characteristics and act out these habits that you developed throughout them. And remember that God loves you. Remember that you are worthy and deserving of love, and you're deserving of being accepted. Know that you're worthy. I think that I feel like what the world needs today is just a lot of reassurance. I hear a lot of stories about kids as young as 9, 11 years old committing suicide, and it's truly, truly heartbreaking because if if only they had someone, or let's say they had somewhat of a guide to rely on, I feel like, it wouldn't have to be their ending story. And so if we could just, practice more being more selflessness, even if you're going through your tragedy, even though you're going through, hardships and things like that, it'll shift your mindset within that connection. Like when you helping someone else, it automatically gives you a sense of um a sense of purpose, I want to say, because it's like everyone could use help. There's not nobody walking this earth that doesn't need help. In order for any of us to get to where we need to be, we need help. And so just try to be who you need, and really strive to be the greatest and most healthiest version of yourself. And thank you so much for this opportunity. Once again, I really do appreciate it.
Julivia, thank you so much. I think it's been a very insightful conversation. I think people have got a lot of value from it. You've certainly given people a vision of hope that regardless of where you are, there's kind of like a way out of it. And then certainly if you have a bit of self-belief and you're willing to kind of like ask others, and then even as you said, like if you can go out and help others as well, it's definitely going to pull you forward, give you a sense of
Yeah.
purpose. So, and then you've certainly made it very clear that there is no shame. There are plenty of us who have struggled, and we will continue to struggle, but there is certainly light at the end of the tunnel. So for
Mhm.
anyone who's interested in learning more about you, where can they find you online?
So I am on Instagram at Julivia Christa. I am also on Twitter at Honey Be Healed, which is the title of my novel. My novel is available on Amazon as well, and I'm pretty much based on Instagram. That's where I do a lot of my inspirational and motivational posts. Um, and a lot of the things that I do for the community, if I am hosting an event or if I am conducting an event for the youth, all the information will be based on my website, which is on my Instagram as well. And yeah, honestly, I am looking forward to shifting the narrative. That is the end goal for me, to give back and shift the narrative.
Brilliant. So one more time, Julivia, thank you so much for sharing your happy mind story.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. It was my pleasure.